Hey everyone, this is Dr. Drizzle, and welcome to the National Parks Expedition Challenge. Today, we're in Saguaro National Park in the Rincon Mountain District in Arizona. Beautiful land around us, and I'm watching my feet to make sure there are no reptiles coming around, but I think we're safe because we're here in February with Ranger Erich. Ranger Erich, thank you for bringing us here today.
Hello, welcome. I'm glad you made the journey down here.
Yeah, so just a little caveat. When we first started this journey, you said it would be just a little flat walk to this particular area, and Ranger Erich, that was not true. It was not flat, and I'm a little worried about getting back, but what a beautiful spot. Before we start talking about Saguaro and all the resources we can find here, how did you get to the national parks? What's your journey?
Yeah, I think that's such a great question that you asked the rangers, because every story is different. And ever since I was little, I loved sharing nature with people and helping them understand it and understand why it mattered. And so when I went to college, I chose to study outdoor education. And so that was my job for the last 4 or 5 years. And I taught 5th and 6th grade students out in the redwoods in California. And that was an amazing time helping to help those students understand and interpret the nature around them. And now with the National Park Service, that's my job. I work with the interpretation here at Saguaro National Park.
Well, I knew we were a kindred spirit because I taught 5th grade for many years, and that was such a great group of kids, that
really
grade level.
It really is.
They're interesting, they want to learn, but they're still will be friends with you too,
Yes,
right?
yes.
So we're glad that you made it here because you are our interpreter today for
Yes.
Saguaro National Park. So tell us a little bit about this place.
All right. Well, Saguaro National Park has a long history, even, of course, before it was dedicated and set aside as a national park. In 1933 is when the U.S. government set aside this parcel of land as a national monument. And if after the Wilderness Act, they set aside a large portion of land, over 85% of our 90,000 acres, as national wilderness. So over here behind the cameras, our Rincon Mountains contain about 60,000 acres of wilderness back there. And the city of Tucson, I'll mention, is just 15 miles that way.
Wow. And it became a national park in 1994, is that correct?
That's correct. Yep, 1994 is when it was approved as a national park. And the reason it was set aside to begin with was, of course, its namesake, the Saguaro Cactus.
Well, tell us about those because they seem to be the main attraction here.
They certainly are. Everyone here who comes wants to know where's the biggest, where's the tallest. And the fact of the matter is there's just so many of them that it's hard to pin it down to this is the biggest and this is the largest. But they are charismatic plants. They look like people with the arms sticking up in the air. Some of them look like faces with the woodpecker holes in the side of them. They are a species of giant cactus that grows only in the Sonoran Desert, of which Saguaro National Park is a part of, and they are excellent desert survivors. They are well adapted to survive in the heat and to survive the short winters that we have here as well, and they are excellent at storing water to survive those droughts between the rains.
Well, you mentioned that we're in the Sonoran Desert, so can you tell us a little bit about that ecosystem?
Definitely. So there are several deserts that make up the southwestern United States and northern Mexico. Among them you have the Great Basin, that's kind of up in the Nevada area, and then to the south of us you have the Chihuahuan Desert. And both of those deserts are very dry, they get very hot, but they also in the winter times they get very, very cold. And that's not good for the saguaro cactus. The saguaros can survive about 20 hours of freezing temperatures before they are no longer able to survive. And so the Sonoran Desert offers kind of a sweet spot in the middle where the summers are still warm, there's some good precipitation, but those winters don't stay too cold for too long. And so that's where the saguaros really thrive, is there in the Sonoran Desert.
Well, as we mentioned before, we're here in February, so that's why it's really nice out here. It's like in the mid 60s, there's a little wind blowing, but we know it can get pretty hot out here too. How hot can it get?
Not as hot as other places in Arizona because of our elevation here at the park. We're about 3,000 feet right here where we are. But in the summertime, it can certainly get over into the 100 degrees Fahrenheit and even a little higher. But it won't stay that way for long because, as you know, desert nights can get pretty chilly. So it'll cool right down once the sun goes down.
So I did say that the Saguaro cactus was the star attraction, but there's a lot of other animals and flora and fauna you can find here. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes, there certainly is. You may notice around us that this is a very green desert because of the rains that we get between our summer monsoons and the winter rains. There's a lot of opportunity for plants to flourish. So you're going to see a lot of plant diversity here in Saguaro National Park. And that, of course, leads to a lot of animal diversity too. So we got several species of birds that move through here on their migration path. Then also we have our resident birds like the Gila woodpecker that are responsible for making those holes in the saguaro. And you have other charismatic animals like the Gila monster, a giant and venomous lizard that's awesome. In the summertime, they come out right before the rains. And you have the javelinas, which they look a lot like a pig, but they're actually not technically a pig. But they love to roam through the washes looking for mesquite to munch on and pretty much anything else. Let's see, we also have our coyotes, our desert hares. There's also mountain lions that roam through these hills. Even once the cactus start fruiting up in the mountains, we have a really interesting and dynamic ecosystem, which we can talk about if you want. But once the desert fruit starts to come out, we'll have black bears come out of the mountain and just come through specifically for the cactus fruit, and then they go back into the mountains.
So the cactus fruit, tell me about that. I'm from the East Coast, so that's not something we see unless we buy a little succulent from the store.
Right.
So tell us a little bit about that cactus fruit.
Yeah, so like most plants, cactus are going to have some kind of fruit that carry the seeds to propagate for the next generation. And for a lot of our cactuses here in Saguaro National Park, they are going to try and time their fruiting season to right before the summer monsoons. Because when the summer monsoons come, that is what allows that seed to then germinate to be able to grow that new plant. And the saguaro fruit and other cactus fruit are really a delicacy for a lot of animals that live here in the desert, and also several animals that are moving through on migration. One example, I don't know if they technically migrate because they really just live just south of the border in Mexico, but the white-winged doves, they come up here specifically to pollinate the saguaro flowers once they're in bloom, and also to eat the fruit once it fruits, and then they'll go back south again.
Now, is the fruit something that a human would eat?
Definitely. So Saguaro National Park sits on land that has been inhabited for thousands of years, beginning with the Hohokam people and then their descendants that are around still today, the Tohono O'odham. They are still here, and they do come and harvest the saguaro fruit, and there's many rituals that are involved with collecting the fruit. It's really fascinating and really beautiful, and they have all sorts of purposes for it. Everything from drying the fruit to save it for later in the year, to boiling it to make juices and jams and preserves. and um, and then taking the seed of the saguaros and grinding it down into almost like a meal that you can bake with. Um, and yeah, there's so much that you can do with the saguaro fruits.
So very resourceful.
Absolutely, there is a lot of natural uses for the saguaro, and then also for humans as well.
Well, so we know that there are a lot of things that are sort of endemic here, like we were going to find them
Yes.
here, but we also know we have some things here that we don't like as much.
Go
and that
on.
brings us to the pesky, if you will, buffle grass.
Yes.
So can you tell our students, what is buffle grass? Why is
Yeah.
it a nuisance? And what are you guys doing to move it somewhere else?
So like you mentioned, buffle grass is not only is it not native here to Saguaro National Park, but it's also not only found here at Saguaro National Park. It's a non-native grass species that is an invasive species, which means it came from somewhere else. It was brought here actually back in the early 1900s to be able to use in the Southwest at large to kind of create food for cattle and for those ranch lands. And so it originated in the savannas of Africa and Asia, and so it is well adapted for that sort of environment. So the savannas and the deserts have a lot of things in common. They get very hot, they have short rainy seasons. However, over in savanna habitat, you have a regular cycle of fires. And so a lot of those plants that are adapted for savanna life are also adapted for those seasonal fires. So when a fire moves through, it'll burn through quickly and then the grass comes right back, it's just fine. However, in the Sonoran Desert at least, a lot of our plants are not fire adapted. And so this is the problem that the buffle grass creates in our Saguaro National Park and in the surrounding area, is that it creates a huge fire risk because it fills in the gaps between the native desert plants, and then between those plants you have a bridge of buffle grass that can carry the fire quickly through the desert. And like I said, these cactuses, they're not adapted for fire. And saguaro is roughly 80% water, and so once that heat of the fire starts to cook that saguaro, it just essentially boils the plant, which is no fun at all.
So what are you doing to take care of these fire conduits, if you will? This buffle grass.
Absolutely. So there are a couple of things that we can do, and none of them are easy. There are certain times of year and certain things that we can do to kind of use herbicides and other things to help keep the buffle grass at bay and from invading into new areas. But kind of once it's established, it's very hard to remove. And so really the most effective way to remove that buffle grass is to go in by hand and pull it out of the ground.
Oh, wow.
And make sure that you get all of the roots and you don't spill any of the seeds, so that those seeds then create more buffle grass. And then you're doing this in, desert climate and temperature, and you are working in areas that, your rattlesnakes love to hang out and that sort of thing. So it comes with its risks. But really it's a worthwhile risk, especially considering the long-term impact that a fire could have in this corner of the Sonoran Desert.
So that's going to lead us to our STEM challenge, because we know that you guys have answers to things that we haven't even thought of yet. So first, we want you to research buffle grass. We want you to really dig into, if you will, what it looks like, how hardy it is, and what a nuisance it is to places like the Saguaro National Park. This is a beautiful place, and we don't want anything to impact it negatively, which the buffle grass could when we have, opportunities for fires. So figure out how you could get rid of the buffle grass for the rangers. to save them energy, sweat equity. Like they want
Like
to get
literally.
it removed. Yeah, it's just a lot of work.
Yep.
So how can you find an easier way to get rid of the buffle grass? But as with all invasive species, there are some good to these things too. So once we remove it from here, what can you use it for?
Yeah.
Can you create some type of new product using buffle grass? Could you create new types of fire starters that stores could sell to use for campsites or places where fires could be controlled more carefully? I don't know. Could buffle grass be used to integrate into a new type of clothing? You know, the sky's the limit here. And the most important part of this challenge is that you could help Saguaro National Park solve a problem that they have and create something new. So we're going to look at two global goals today. One is goal 15, life on land, and obviously this buffle grass is life on land. So we're also going to look at goal number 12, which is responsible production and consumption. We're going to take the buffle grass and find a new use for it. Ranger Erich, I think this will make your lives a little bit better because these kids are going to come up with these ideas. They're going to share with me at Dacia92 on social media, but we're also going to tag Saguaro. So are you up for that?
Yeah, that'll be wonderful. We're excited to see what they come up with.
And do it kind of quickly, like, you know, go ahead and start because the summer's coming, right? And it's going to get hot.
Yes, yes.
Well, after they finish all these amazing challenges and sort of help the national parks out, we have a lot of students that really want your job. So they want the flat hat, they want the outfit, the whole thing, the brown socks. So can you look at the camera and just give some advice to our students in pre-kindergarten through 12th grade who might want your job someday?
Yeah, awesome. All right, so to me, the cool thing about the National Park Service is that there are all kinds of jobs. So whatever your interest might be, there's probably a job here for you. If you want to teach people, if you want to ask questions about the plants and animals here in the Sonoran Desert, if you are good with tools or you just love being outside, any number of things. So my counter question to you would be, what are you interested in? What gets you curious or excited about working in the national park? And try and go down that path and see where it leads you, and it might actually take you to working in a national park. You just don't realize it yet.
Those are great observations for our students, and I love the idea about having the kids think about what they are passionate about, because I feel like students could propose a job to the national park that maybe they haven't thought of before.
Absolutely.
I think buffle grass removers, you know, BGRs are really cool things that they could possibly be.
One thing's for sure, we love acronyms, so that's
we
a good one.
In the education world, we do
Definitely.
also. So OMG, kids, we want you to come up with some really great ideas for Saguaro National Park so that you too can wear that flat hat. So thank you so much for joining us today for the National Parks Expedition Challenge. So far, no reptiles have been out, but we'll see if we can find a few for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ranger Erich, for allowing us to come here today. And just remember, you're carrying the camera bag back up the hill.
I got it.
Okay. Thanks again for joining us. This is Dr. Drizzle, and we're out of here.